I stood frozen, staring at a pile of shattered cedar and broken glass where my family's cabin used to stand. Just yesterday, it was the porch where I taught my daughter to bait a hook the walls filled with decades of memories. Now, it was nothing but rubble, and right beside it stood Linda Crawford, the HOA president, wearing that smug little grin like she'd just won a war. She thought she was queen of the lake. She thought I was finished. She had no idea what she'd just started. My name is Jack Reynolds. I'm a retired electrician, a veteran. And for the past 30 years, the little cabin by Silver Creek Lake was my sanctuary. Built it with my dad, plank by plank, roof beam by roof beam. It was where I healed from 2 decades of noise in my head, where I finally found some peace. It was where my daughter Sarah came back to life after her illness, her strength coming back with every breath of lake air. That place wasn't just wood and nails, it was our anchor. The first shot fired came on a morning like any other. I was sipping lukewarm coffee on the porch, watching the mist burn off the water when I saw her. Linda marching up the dirt path with her clipboard like it was a sword. She didn't bother with a hello. She just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mr. Reynolds, you're 6 months behind on your HOA fees. That's $3,000. I almost laughed. I've never been late a day in my life. I keep a ledger down to the last dime. I told her that. She just smirked, puffed up her chest, and said the board had voted on a special assessment for dredging the lake. Apparently, I hadn't paid. My brow furrowed because I'd never heard a word about it. No notice, no vote, nothing. She told me I had until 5 p.m. to pay in full, or the cabin was subject to remediation. That word hit me like a brick. Remediation. She meant demolition. I stood, chair creaking under my weight, and told her, "You can't do that. This cabin has been here 50 years. Her eyes glittered. "Oh, but we can," she said before marching off like she'd just signed my death warrant. I spent hours that day digging through my files, canceled checks, bank statements, even old newsletters. Not one word about any special assessment. It was a lie, plain and simple. I called the HOA office straight to voicemail. Drove there, door locked. It was a setup. She wanted this. Still, I thought it was a bluff. No way they'd bulldoze a man's property overnight. I was wrong. At dawn, the next morning, my neighbor Henderson stood pale-faced in my driveway, twisting his cap in his hands. "Jack, I'm sorry. They came an hour ago." My stomach sank. I walked down toward the water, my fishing rod still in hand, and stopped cold. My cabin was gone. Just a heap of splintered wood dirt torn open and a bulldozer sitting proud like it had done God's work. I stepped through the wreckage boots, crunching on what used to be my floor. Found a photograph of my late wife lying in the dirt glass cracked like my chest. They hadn't just leveled a building, they'd dynamited my soul. And as neighbors peeked through curtains whispering, I realized I wasn't just grieving. I was furious. I confronted Linda at the office later. Put my file of proof down on her desk. Every payment's here. What you did was illegal. She didn't even glance at it. Just leaned back, steepled her fingers, and said, "Your failure to stay informed is not the board's fault. We followed the bylaws to the letter." Then she waved me toward the door like I was some pest. Days later, I watched her on a live-streamed HOA meeting framed by the American flag and HOA banner. She never said my name, just called me a property in violation. Said they'd taken decisive action to protect community values. Then she smiled into the camera and said, "We hope this serves as a message. Our rules are not suggestions." She was mocking me, mocking my family's loss, selling my lot like it was already hers. That night I sat in my truck, Sarah's voice trembling through the phone. No dad. Not the cabin. Not our place. I wanted to protect her, to tell her it was going to be okay, but all I could whisper was, "I'm sorry, sweetheart." For a moment I wanted to quit. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just a bitter old man chasing something already gone. But then I remembered Linda's smirk, her voice dripping with victory as she erased us. That was when the anger crystallized into something sharp. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. I started digging into the HOA's records. Linda handed me boxes of receipts dumped together, hoping I'd give up. But I wasn't some rookie. I'd spent years troubleshooting systems in the military, finding one faulty wire in a mile of chaos. This was no different. I traced invoices, cross-checked payments, found fake contractors, expired licenses, shady charges. Then came the smoking gun, a $75,000 invoice from Clearwater Solutions LLC for emergency dredging. A fake company, pixelated logo, no tax ID, and the signature Linda's. She had forged it. I thought neighbors would rally when I showed them. Henderson went pale, whispered, "Good God," then backed away. Others shut their doors, afraid she'd target them. Fear was her weapon, and she'd built an empire on it. Soon came the retaliation fines for my grass being a quarter-inch too tall, threats about my garbage cans. Newsletters painting me as a troublemaker, spreading malicious rumors. I was alone. My own daughter begged me to stop. And late one night, staring at the plat map pinned in my garage, I almost believed her. But then I saw it. A dotted line separating the lots from the lake. The lots belonged to the HOA. The lake didn't. It had been orphaned in a bankruptcy decades ago, floating in legal limbo. Linda had built her throne on land she never owned. That was the turning point. With my buddy Tom and a pit bull lawyer named Miller, we filed quietly to buy the lake. It cost every cent of my savings. My wife worried Sarah thought I'd lost my mind. But I knew I wasn't just fighting anymore. I was flipping the whole board. Weeks later, deed in hand, I prepared my move. The HOA's big summer barbecue was the crown jewel of Linda's reign. As she stood at the clubhouse basking in applause, I went live on the community page from the ruins of my cabin. My voice was steady. "Good evening, neighbors. My name is Jack Reynolds. You know my cabin used to stand right here. The HOA under Linda Crawford demolished it, claiming I hadn't paid a special assessment. Tonight, I'll show you the truth." I held up the fraudulent invoice, explained the fake company, the forged signature. Faces in the crowd froze. Then I dropped the hammer. This lake does not belong to the HOA. It belongs to me. As of 3 weeks ago, I am the legal owner of Silver Creek Lake. I held the deed to the Camera County seal, shining. Chaos erupted. Phones lit up. People shouted, pointing at Linda. I saw her face blanch, then twist in fury. She pushed through the crowd, storming toward me with papers waving in her hand. "These are the covenants. This is HOA property," she screeched. I looked at her calmly and asked, "Are those papers as real as your dredging invoice?" "Linda." She froze. Trembling, caught live on camera with nothing left to bluff. The queen of the lake was dethroned in front of everyone she ruled. Within days, the entire HOA board resigned. Linda, desperate, tried breaking my padlock at the boat launch in the middle of the night. When deputies arrived, her forged documents fell apart in their hands. She was cuffed right there for trespassing and forgery dragged away under flashing lights. And me, I stood on the same dirt where my cabin once stood, watching as the tyrant finally collapsed under the weight of her own lies. Power built on fear always falls.